So yeah, Chris Evans is coming back into the MCU. He apparently was cast in Avengers Doomsday. We don't know if he's coming back as Captain America or just a different role entirely, but all we know is Chris Evans is coming back into the MCU, kind of like how Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to the MCU. And it's all just it's so tiring at this point. It's kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Before we get into all that, what's good, guys? It's Demi M7. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and you're gonna have a great week, I know it. But yeah, yesterday it was announced that Chris Evans will be in Avengers Doomsday in some role. It wasn't specified, we don't know, but it doesn't really matter, for me at least, at the end of the day. Because when it was announced to the world that Robert Downey Jr. was gonna be Victor Von Doom last summer, everyone was going crazy. Even I mean, again, I made a video pretty optimistic about it at first, but then I thought about it. I kind of let it, like, sit in my brain for a little. And then I just wasn't really crazy about the move. And now with this announcement, there really was no excitement phase. It was just disappointment. Now look, let's address the elephant in the room. Obviously, this whole Avengers Doomsday thing was just one giant pivot from the original plans that the MCU had involving Kang and the Kang Dynasty. I get that. But is this really the best approach to this pivot? Just having essentially who were your two main faces of the MCU for the last decade, who we all thought were done after Endgame, which, by the way, having Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans in Avengers Doomsday just kind of takes away some of what was so magical and special about Avengers Endgame. It was the idea that Iron Man, he was done. Robert Downey Jr., all this work that he has done over the last 10 years at that point as Iron Man and what he did for the MCU, for the box office, for just movies in general, it was incredible. And then with Chris Evans, with his role as Captain America, how great he was in that role, and his ending that he got in Endgame, it was just a really great send-off for both of these actors who have done so much for the MCU. Now, don't get me wrong, even at the time, I was expecting that we'd see both of them in at least like some capacity in an Avengers movie in the future, like maybe Secret Wars or something. But that was more along the lines of just having very minor roles to like this really grand, big scope thing like Secret Wars, where, Iron Man and Captain America come back for another fight just for a little bit, something along the lines of like, the Spider-Man in No Way Home. But instead, Marvel just recycled Robert Downey Jr. as not only their biggest face of their heroes, but now he's the biggest face of their villains right now, which for me personally is a little bit lazy. It's a little bit desperate. And that's the same thing that's happening now that we know that Chris Evans will be in the movie too. Again, we don't know what the role will be yet, but it's still Chris Evans. And it's pretty obvious as to why Marvel is even doing this at all. It's because, again, ever since Endgame, popularity, critical reception, and box office reception for Marvel movies just hasn't been what it used to be, outside of like outliers like Deadpool and Wolverine. I mean, hell, just taking a look at all the movies that have come out since Endgame, we've got Spider-Man Far From Home, that did well, obviously. Black Widow, not good at all. That movie stunk, and it didn't do good at the box office either. Shang-Chi, that movie was great. It still blows my mind that we haven't gotten a sequel to it yet. That's just incredible. Eternals, again, didn't get great reception. Spider-Man No Way Home, obviously we all know what that was. It did great. It was a great movie, and it made a lot of money. Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness, that was fun. It was a fun movie. I don't think it was as bad as some people try to make it out to be. Thor, Love and Thunder, yeah, that stunk. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, that movie did very well, and it was a good movie for what it was. Obviously, it was a giant pivot from the original idea for obvious reasons. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Even this was before everything that happened with Jonathan Majors, and the movie still bombed. It bombed completely. The reviews were terrible, and the movie stunk. Like, let's just call it like it is. And it didn't do well at the box office for a reason. And then we get Guardians 3, did well. It was a solid movie. The Marvels, I'm sorry to say it bombed, and it wasn't very good either. And then, of course, we got Deadpool and Wolverine. So that's everything since Endgame, and it's basically just been a whole lot of mid from a critical reception level as well as a box office level. Again, outside of outliers like Deadpool and Wolverine, I think Black Panther did well too, and No Way Home. Obviously, having Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, the two former faces of Marvel with their iconic roles, having them come back with completely different roles for Avengers Doomsday is nothing more than just one giant desperate attempt from the MCU, from Marvel Studios, to get people excited about the MCU again. Now listen, I really do try to be as optimistic as possible with anything that I talk about here. I really do. I try to look at the bright side of things, but there are just some things like this that are just kind of egregious. Like I said in my video talking about Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom, why couldn't you guys just get somebody new to play the role? Like, why did you have to get Robert Downey Jr.? I mean, the dude has already had an unbelievable amount of success as Iron Man. I mean, you couldn't get somebody else to be, I'm just saying, it was cheap. It just felt like really lazy to me. And I don't care what role Chris Evans has in this movie. Maybe it's a flashback scene. Maybe he will come back as Captain America. I don't know, and I don't really care either. I mean, look, it was cool to see him in Deadpool as Johnny Storm again, but that at least made sense. Like that was a fun little cameo of seeing Chris Evans again. But for whatever he's doing in Doomsday, seriously, it just really feels like Marvel and Marvel Studios has run out of ideas to get people genuinely excited about these movies. I mean, hell, the movies that are coming up next year, like the new Captain America movie, apparently doesn't look great. It had a bunch of reshoots, a bunch of rewrites. Even the title was getting changed a bunch of times. And apparently, according to early screenings, it's not a very good movie. We haven't heard much about the Thunderbolts movie, but apparently that one's not going to be super great either. But again, we haven't heard much about it. It could be great. Who knows? But yeah, it just seems like Marvel Studios is in a really weird spot right now. And their whole game plan is just kind of bringing in all these faces that made the MCU so popular in hopes that maybe it'll get people excited again, even if it just means having them as different roles. I just kind of find it very desperate. But I don't know. That's just what I think about the whole situation. Let me know in the comments what you think. How do you feel about where the MCU is heading right now? Let me know. And until next time, peace.